Hello. Hi, this is another one of my vlogs, you know. I figure I could take a little bit of time out every day and say a few things so I don't have to be as long-winded as I normally am. I can speed things up a little bit. I may be country, don't make me less intelligent, but I can speed stuff up a little bit. Haven't heard no complaints. I hardly get any hits anyhow. So, you know, perhaps one day, sometime, you know, when you write stuff down and do this kind of stuff, it lasts forever. And, you know, it'd be nice to have something like this. It's the only thing I'm keeping track of, you know, my paintings and all. I do my paintings. I don't even hardly take a little many pictures. They're gone. I don't even have a chance to keep track. But today I want to talk to you about this, this Lord, our Lord, okay? And religion itself, you know, where it came from, shit like that. You know, and you know, when there really isn't a whole lot of ground for religion itself to stand on, and I'm going to poke at you know, what I dub as, you know, the Abraham group of religions, which, you know, appear to dominate the globe, you know, regardless of you know, their being the youngest of all of them, including Judaism. Okay, and I can tell you what I mean by that. And, you know, you may have thought my first thing telling you how Antichrist Church is and how religion is. And that this basically is part of that new world order that started over 2,000 years ago. You know, when they separated you from your higher self, way back then, you know, when they killed the pagans, you know, made fun of them and, you know, killed off knowledge and the Gnostics and people that had knowledge, anyone, you know. You know, I'll be the next head up for grabs when that chopping day comes, you know. So, because they were killing true believers, all right? And I've got tons of conversation on what makes a true believer. But, you know, Islam, you know, is actually, you know, if you want to talk about where God comes from, you want to talk about where God comes from, he comes from the Middle East. He came from Baghdad. And he came from Persia, and he was birthed by these people, these Persians, these people that celebrated a whole entire different kind of a god at that time, and one of their chief prophets of their era was a guy named Zoroaster. All right, and so this Persian kings like Cyrus, all right, they tell you right in the Bible. It's Cyrus that is told to go and rebuild this for the temple for the Jews. And he also orders Ezra to go and to rewrite the book and go and give it to Jerusalem. And that, you know, there's this Artaxerxes, this King Artaxerxes, sometime later was going to, I'll enforce this, you know. So, you know, it's just showing you that this was all contrived, and it all came from Persia. And it came from a guy that had an Ahura Mazda as a god. Wasn't, you know, a god of, you know, it wasn't Satan, you know. I don't know that you can actually, I don't know where the Ahura Mazdas come from, but, you know, we know that in reality those guys are, you know, using Satan and Saturn and the cube and all of that stuff, you know, and so it's just right on the top, you know, the Satan guys, you know, just right off the bat, you know. But they also claim to be the chosen ones, and they can't, because in reality what a Jew is someone who is inwardly and not as outwardly. So whenever you look up the Bible and you see, you know, it describes what a Jew is. A Jew is not someone that is outwardly. And it doesn't mean it's outside of the clan of these Jewish people. It means that an outwardly appearance, a race. There's no one. What this is, the electronic maze that creates God and creates this conduit to him, isn't everyone on earth, you know. And you know, at that particular time they were killing that out of people. You know, you had to, you know, cut off the lower flesh. You had to chop someone's cock or penis, you know, and you know, and you could always tell where those guys were, you know, because they looked for pain. They liked to. There was like there's some kind of blood cult where they wanted to get beat, you know, and they said, oh yeah, well, if you take it for Jesus, you know, or you take it, you know, you're doing it for Jesus. But that's not the Old Testament. The New Testament takes that on. The New Testament means you have to believe in someone being killed so that you can get some goodies for it, And I hear people talk about, the Illuminati and all this, Satan worship and Baphomets. If you want to advance, you got to provide a blood sacrifice. And it's not the same. It is the same. And so, people who believe in the outside scripture, the fundamentalist view of both of these, the Jewish Bible, and we have the New Testament and the Old Testament, the New Testament. The New Testament actually is Greek. It's written in Greek, but it still comes from the same group of people. It came from Persia. When it talks about the Magi's coming and finding them, the Magi is not magician, but magician is a part of it. But it really meant he was, they were watching the stars, and they were the ones that found Jesus. So they actually, brought this on too, So they created both the Jewish and the Jesus myths, all right. And then once they got those guys going, they make the Jewish people. I always say Jew. There's so many ways to use it, but the Jewish people, they wind up being the patsy, the fall guy. And of course now, since they're the chosen ones, they can go and they get this God-permitted, land grab, and kill all these Palestinians because God said it was cool, because God gave it to them, and that's just a bunch of crap, None of this stuff ever existed without them making it come alive. It's like a Starbucks on every corner. We have a church on every corner. It ain't help shit. It ain't help nothing. But it's the control factor of it all. At one time, these people was leeching. You thought Big Brother was in your ass. My God, here you had a thought police. And you had to do it. If you didn't, you were out. You were ostracized. You would get tarred and feathered. You'd get burned at the stake, and don't tell me you can't. That only stopped less than 100 years ago. I'd be killed, if I was back, even like 50 years ago. Oh my God, I'd be run out of town on rail. I would be. That would be it. Some people listen to me now run me out if they really want to, because I'm telling you that every one of those religions are made up. Okay? Some way of controlling everybody, and to start this, we didn't start the fire. We got an airplane coming up. Billy Joel, we didn't start the fire. It's always burning since no. Somebody started that fire, and we're used. Those people, you and me, and these other people of the other little countries, the children and all, we're used as the fodder for whoever these people are that are creating all this stuff. So anyways, get on down to the 3 cards of the apocalypse. That's what we also call Islam, and Christian, and Judaism. And don't think Catholics get out of it. Catholics are the Christians, okay? I just group them in there. There's the ugly stepsister that everything has to come from. You just think they are not discredited from this. They also are a fundamentalist and, a little on the crazy side too. Demon. So, we just say that they're just bad guys, And basically because they're talking about the surface of Scripture, so, and they just don't know no better. And perhaps, if they knew what I did, you can't get any money off of this. Deceiving the deceiver is a part of, being deceived. If you plan on making money out of this and stuff like that. And I talk terrible. I use words that people don't normally would use. I hope that I am not worthy of having commercials attached to my shit. I don't want them. I don't care. But I have no bad feelings against anybody. Be it the blacks or the gays or anyone, because it just doesn't. These have been used against me and the people, and they just don't have any problem with me anymore. I don't. The inside of me is cleaned out. The outside of me is cleaned out. Well, I'm still working on it. But if something I say stirs you up, Buddha would say, there's something that's in you that stirs you up. So you work on it. If you can't take it, I said queer or something like that, get over it. And it's just a shame, because I'm not going to go around saying, oh, it's the Q word or the R word. I may say N word because, they've got it planned like that. But I ain't going to run around saying this word and that word. I'm going to just tell it right out. So, what you have is Islam winds up coming in. Islam is the only one that has real people in it. Okay? That's the strange part. is that, Muhammad was not a myth. All right. He's a real live idiot. Okay. And his sister actually winds up being Our Lady of Fatima, the water. You see, Islam had it before the Christians took it over and made it into, made her white. But I can show you over at this church that I'm at. I go to the black Episcopal church. Well, I did. I got to paint Our Lady, and I painted her black with a little black child on her. And it's the most real and most truthful thing in all of these churches all over the world. It's right here in our little church here. But anyways, that winds up being Muhammad's sister, I believe. Isn't it sister or daughter? His daughter. Okay, yeah. So anyhow, everything is so screwed up, but this was also made up by these guys too, alright? This was borrowed from here and borrowed from there. Our Bible was borrowed the entire, if you want to, everyone puts so much emphasis on Revelations, and I will tell you that it was Zoroaster. Zoroaster came 1,000 years or 2,000, about 1,000 years or so before Christ, before they ever even mentioned that Greek name of Christ, right? The Greek name of Christ, right? Or Jesus. Before they ever uttered that on the scene. Word for word was taken from his writings, all right? And really, Revelation is an eye-opening. It's when you, wow, I've gained everything, and the four horsemen, the four horsemen is just like, I've gained control over my intellectual side, because it rides like a compass, the fourfold nature of man, and it rides in colors. So, it's like, when I look at myself, it's north, east, south, and west, so I'm just going to pretend that I'm not. But to the north is our emotional nature, so it's the red. All right, it's the emotional side of us, And so to the right side of us is our spiritual side, so it's the white horse. To the lower down here, to the south, is our physical side, so it's the flesh color one. And so over here is our intellectual side, and it's black. All right. So it has to make sense. All right. So as the earth turns, it's always the black that's encroaching on the light, and then later on it's the light encroaching and taking over. So it's this light and darkness changing. That's what everything is about. Okay, basically. But in reality, one is a positive and one is a negative, and so it creates an electrical charge, or it's a magnetic and something else. But anyhow, you get away from the science part of that stuff. Underneath every one of those scriptures is saying what I'm saying. Shh, there is no God. Allah, Allah, there is no God, there's only Allah. Allah, if you would go to a Sufi Muslim, which would be, if I was a Muslim, I'd be a Sufi Muslim, and they'd love me, because they said, damn, Rick, I love how you change. I love how you just make things so simple. But in reality, it is simple. Anything from God should be beautiful, and there should be synchronicity. There should be all this blood and garbage on there. We've got to touch here and do all this crap, and dunk me in the water. What the hell is all that shit, dude? Not a goddamn thing, So you say, well, there is no Lord, there is only Allah, and Allah is not a God. Okay, because they just said that. But you want to take it fundamentally, we only have one God, there is only God. And the reason why you have trouble putting a face on God is because He is everything, and that's what Allah means. Well, Allah means everything. So He looks like this could be Allah, the guilt stand. Ooh, let's make it Allah. Let's get mad when somebody says this is Allah. It's crazy. Even the word God is a plural, So it's not like, hey God, what are you doing? He'll say, well, which one of us do you want? Because in reality, you have the good guy and the bad guy, and that's the way it always is. You have the creative people. People say, I'm right brain. You're not right brain. When you got this left brain, when you're waking up and all this shit ain't on. Whichever way it goes through. when you're awake, this is the left side of your brain. Yeah, the left side. I'm dyslexic, so you can tell I'm having a little trouble with this camera and how it works. So this is the left side of your brain. That's the destroyer. It's red, the red color. Over here is the creator. So people, I'm creative, I'm the right side. Well, no, you're creative. You're still on this side, but the creator side is dormant and this side is on. Just is. But, if you want to work both sides, which is what Jesus asked us to do in God, is to go inside, join them together, that when you come back down, you don't separate. You have them now forever. It'll wear off. It does. But the way is still there for you to come back home anytime you want to. So that's a really good thing about it. But once you get up there, then you're walking on sunshine. And you spread sunshine as you walk. So don't think any of this is crazy, but every one of those, the stories that you find in the Old Testament are all about finding God and climbing that mountain and going up the backside. Moses takes his flock up the backside of the mountain. There's plenty of stories where he separates the water, which is the emotions, and these guys go out and they're going up the back of this. The idea of following the smoke, or all the different stages of consciousness being relayed out in front of you. You'll find that it's the same as Devaki, which is the mother of Krishna. She goes through all of these things. She has plenty of Moses in it. The little baby Krishna gets put in a basket, and he is put on someone's head and floated across the water, and it parts as he goes, and they're on their way, through the wind and through the rain and all. It was the same stories. Just a little shuffled up some, and go back to Odin. Odin's like very old. I think he gives birth to Zeus. No, maybe so. Anyways, he's told, your sister's gonna have a kid or something like that. Or his wife. I think it's his wife. I have to think about that. Damn, because it's starting to get mixed up. But anyways, because they're the same stories. Well, anyways, he's told that one of his children was going to overcome him. And so he sets out to eat each one of them as it comes in. So these are stories like the Little Red Riding Hood, which is an allegory as well. It has science in it. And it's all about the Kundalini. This one is what I'm talking about. Is when the first baby came out, that's the lower chakra. And he eats and he eats and he eats. And then that seventh one, she tricks him. She takes the baby and she wraps it up in a stone. Takes the baby, she hides the baby and wraps up a stone instead. Tosses it to him and he gobbles it up and he throws up all over the place. And all these kids pop out, blah, blah, all restoring. And that's what happens. Everyone is restored, Lot is tricked. He finally gets tricked gets drunk and then is raped by his two daughters. That's actually the two sides coming together as one, because these are extensions of yourself. That's why they're daughters and sons and stuff like that, wives, and fathers and stuff like that. The very first commandment is to honor thy mother and father. That's your mother and father. She's known in our Bible as the mother of us all. All right. And it sounds crazy, but she does bring us things. Like I had mentioned, you have to have an electrical a pulse, and you have to have something to catch it, right? And so she catches the pulse that you put across there, and when that happens, this it just brings on what we're looking for with the God. And it has got nothing to do with the devil at all. I tell you, nothing about it at all. This is what stones the devil, because you're using the stone, you're knocking that motherfucker out, So anyhow, these, all three, and look at how many beautiful things have been brought about. All this, and we wouldn't know any. We don't need to be told by some stupid books how to act to each other. We really don't. We bring we bring that kind of goodness to these things by trying. But there's suicides. Fuck, Jesus is thrown under the bus by his father. You know, genocide, fratricide, all the sides that there probably could possibly be. You know, and so you know, it's not a great place for morals. It really ain't. You know, but you know, if you want to lean on them, you can, because they do have some meaning to them, but not enough to go out and worship on it and give lip service to this Lord who could possibly, through you, change the way the world is. But you're waiting around for him to come. He's waiting for you to come back. And you know, and you have to understand that the lower conscious and this lower frequency is out to trick you. It doesn't want you to leave, so everything is going to be made backwards. They say Satan did it, but you know, it's man, and all of this stuff is, you know, is all made up. All the stories, the millions of stories between the 3 books that I'm talking about right now. Underneath all of the legitimate stories in those books, all it says is "Come home." And it rings through each one of them. Each story says it. The lady at the well, you know, it's a small little thing, but whenever she meets Jesus, you know, remember the drink, you go in there and you drink from this well, you'll never thirst again. That's inside of you. That well is inside of you. And water, it means the truth. Water, something you see through. It's the second phase it's the second stage of consciousness. It's what Abraham and his wife were running around looking for while they're stoning the devil. Do you understand? They were looking for the water, and they were having trouble shutting off their mind. And they had to keep stoning the devil to stop him from thwarting their trip. Do you understand? So if we had known this, all these thousands and thousands of years, these 3 cards of the apocalypse would not have such a control over everyone. And I'm telling you, it's all a lie. It's all a lie. It's as much a lie as the made up. I mean, sure, there's terrorism now, but they created that. It didn't have it before. You know, you want to light fires? Someone knows how to light fires. Someone's lit a whole mess of fires. I didn't light them, but I can showing you how to put them out. That's help me and help yourself. Best to y'all. Peace.